there's an event next week, which we hope will have this podcast out either just before or right after this event at our favorite company. Apple's got their WWDC, and there's been a lot of speculation and rumor around what Apple may do in this AI space, because they can't just leave it. Like, it's pretty clear. No. And they've built a whole brand around privacy. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see what they do in the future. And there's, some of us are hoping we're going to see some of that next week, although we know they're going to drop something about their VR headset.
Yeah, we'll just put the VR AR stuff on the shelf. That's outside the scope of that's outside the context window of this context podcast.
That's right. But we think that they may be up to something. Do you have any thoughts on what that might be?
Yeah, so let's spell it out as to why Claris people should care about this, for starters, right? So first of all, Claris is an Apple subsidiary. Okay, we know that. Everybody knows that. Well, what does that mean for potentially integrating AI into a Claris platform, for example, right? Well, that means that until Apple says it's okay, Claris can't go do that, right? So legally, they're saying, and it has to do with a lot of the fact that there's like yet to be settled attribution law, copyright stuff is huge. And so Apple essentially says, look, until this is settled, none of our code that we use we can't use Copilot. We can't use any of these tools to generate Apple products. Yeah. Okay.
Can you imagine the lawsuit target that would be?
Oh, because they're the biggest target in the world.
They can't do it. So they basically said no.
And they can't do it. So then you go, well, good luck with that. I mean, because it almost would be like saying you're the biggest manufacturer of goods in the world and you're not going to China or something, right? Like, you're just, we're going to keep it here and pay 8 times the cost to do it. Like, how long is that going to work, right? So obviously they're way smarter people than you and I. So they know they would need to leverage this, and so they would need to create their own model. Well, what's the problem with that? Well, if we dissect that, the problem is these corpus of data, corpus of data,
Corpuses.
Todd? Corpuses. Okay, cool. I like that.
I don't know what it is. It's one of those.
So the big things of data, those have, well, first of all, before people get too freaked out, if you're worried, hey, UK and the EU, I'm talking to you. If you're worried that your PII is in these language models, go Google yourself once. By the way, do you really, all it did is get the stuff from the internet. It did not expose any additional information. It's not like taking credit card databases or whatever. It's literally whatever's on the internet as of 2021 is available in these language models. So settle down, Google it yourself. You're going to see the creepiest thing you've ever seen. You don't even have to pay $5 for a background check. So that's the first thing. But still, Apple can't do that because of the risk that you just outlined. So then the question is, as I'm thinking about this, is what data do they have? And you just said something super interesting. They are the world leader in data privacy at the same time. So basically what they've said is, remember, I think we were both at the Macworld where they did the billboards all over San Francisco about Google, if you don't care about your personal data, go with Google, or whatever. It was a really hard line that they played on data privacy, and they've kept that ever since. And they've really built a product and a trust with their customers around it. So how do they then pivot and go, oh yeah, forget that. we need to use your data. So the way I think about this is the following, and then I'm going to throw something out there that blows up my whole theory. But I was talking about something on the last pod. What I was calling a self model, Todd. Yeah. I don't know how else to explain it, but it means right now, Wells Fargo has a model of you, Netflix has a model, Google has 50. There's a million models of Todd Geist out there, and you don't have any control over any of them. So, by the way, if you're worried about Googling and you're seeing your private information, wait till you see what is in everybody's models, to the tune of tens of thousands of these. I think a perfectly positioned player in the market could turn that whole thing around and go, how about this? Well, so look what they did with Safari when they said they're going to manage cookies. They hit Facebook in the knees, right? Because you couldn't do all this ad tracking. So they made a big impact there. Someone like Apple could technically put the walls up around PII completely and go, hey, Todd, here's your model. And instead of everybody just grabbing your stuff and you having to opt out like we do with websites and the California one and the GDPR or whatever, How about we give you all your data, Todd, and then you can allow people to opt in. You can go, hey, Netflix wants your data because they want to see what kind of stuff you're interested in. Okay, cool. Yeah, Netflix, you're cool to have it. Amazon wants to know, your likes and dislikes. Like, then we turn it around and you start opting in. Well, a perfectly positioned player in the market to do that would be somebody who already operates in a walled garden, who has an unbelievable amount of personal information about us, like our messages, our emails, our Siri transcripts, where we go, how we're walking around, our health information. Like, think of the data that Apple has on each one of us and how that could play an interesting role. Forget out into the language model world. Imagine if like Siri was actually good. And by the way, I've never been more frustrated with Siri than when ChatGPT became part of my life. Now I literally, I yell at Siri all the time and my Roomba. I'm like, I have such high expectations for AI. How dare you let me down, Siri and Roomba? But the Siri thing is really interesting because it could be you know what I want. Just Siri, come on, man. You know everything about me. And you know what I'm doing this weekend. And you know who I'm doing it with. And you know who I was just talking to about this. Can you just make all that work together and just like go figure out where we're going for dinner? Let the Joneses know down the street. Tell my babysitter what's up. And then, by the way, go make reservations over there. Oh, if we can't get into that place, maybe we cook at home. Go find our favorite dish over there and go fill an Instacart thing for us or whatever. Like that is totally possible from a personal assistant standpoint. And that's what Siri set out to do. And they never accomplished.
They weren't able to
honestly.
because they missed the large language, or they didn't have the large language models that can do the conversational piece very well. But I think you may have jumped over one part, which I think is really key here, that people should get, is that when you say Apple has your data, they have it, but they have it on your device. Right?
Yes.
So like, you remember like that famous terrorist case from a number of years back when that shooting happened out here in the Inland
out
Empire,
here in California.
They literally couldn't get the data off the iPhone.
They defied the federal government
because they don't.
And
have
that was
it.
a great
It's
play.
encrypted on the phone.
Well, so then one would think, okay, there was a company, I don't know how to pronounce this, Todd. I'm looking it up. People on YouTube can see my eyes moving off screen, but it's called Xnor.ai, Zoner, whatever. It's a process for making machine learning algorithms highly efficient, so efficient they could even run on the lowest tier hardware, like a mobile device or on the edge.
Yeah.
Right? So why am I bringing that up? And why am I bringing up another company that is called Vilynx, who developed a self-learning AI platform to understand personal content, on-device personal content? Why am I bringing those two up? Those companies were both acquired by Apple in 2020, Todd. So there's two ways to figure out what Apple's doing. Look at the patent for hardware, because they have to file this patent, and then go look at their acquisitions for software. So how do we piece all that together?
You got to also throw in the fact that if you go download one of these AI models, at least it was when I initially started doing this, I assume it's pretty much the same, but like they require an M1. Like you need an M1 to run a lot of these things. Some of the bigger ones, like Stable Diffusion and stuff like that.
Yeah, and to validate that, even on the open source thing, you hear two things when a new open source model comes out. It goes, what's its capabilities, and then what compute is required to actually run it locally.
And a lot of them are M1s, because the M1s are particularly good at this kind at this kind of computation. So Apple's got the hardware. They have they've got everything they need to build it on the edge.
They have their own silicon, which has been, by the way, been driving very advanced machine learning in non-language model implementations for a long time.
For example,
the camera's incredible. I mean, just go open the Measure app on your phone or something like that. Like, that's pretty crazy what's happening there, right? From just an ML standpoint. So they've got that, and then they've got these other technologies. They've got this data that lives on the device. They could possibly model it. They have they've literally not done anything to Siri in so long that you have to be like, they know Siri sucks. Like, why are you not doing like incremental updates of this? So I think there's something there. And then we look at these acquisitions, and I think we're cobbling together a reasonable theory. But then something completely threw me off on this. They announced the WWDC, and you know how they do their wacky little like teases in the name? This year it's called Swiftly Developing. Oh, yeah. Come on. So obviously you're going to do like a text to code within Swift. And
Xcode will have
I would imagine
will have some kind of copilot, probably.
Xcode has to have a copilot, and I don't know That's going to happen. That's obviously going to happen. And the reason it's going to happen is because sitting in a lot of like business meetings with Apple salespeople, hearing them, I'm not saying any names, but hearing them refer to like when the App Store came out, every Apple salesperson who was going out into the field and talking to a school district or a big enterprise or something like that, they don't make software. I mean, they make Claire's, but let's be honest, like most people at Apple don't even know that Claire's exists. But their customers would say, "Hey, we have these problems we need to solve with your hardware. You just sold us 40,000. You know, we're Pfizer, and you just sold us 40,000 iPads. Well, great." But we have this problem we want to solve. And so what the Apple people have been doing for like 10 years plus is going, go build an app for it. You know, go use Xcode or Swift and build this app out. And then what I've heard these people say over and over again is they're lamenting. They're like, no one can do that. Like, it's really, really hard to do. So if they can solve for the fact that they make Xcode easier and, you know, the whole Swift environment easier to develop in, that solves a huge enterprise level problem for them. I don't know if that's great news for Claris now that I'm hearing myself say it out loud, but I think that just, I would be absolutely shocked if they don't have a Copilot, not named Copilot, definitely not named Copilot, but something that helps you swiftly develop. But then my question would be, how'd you do that? Because where's their corpus of
their data?
Xcode, right? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so, because like they don't have like,
you know, what they're going to do is going to
we don't know.
What they're going to do is going to have to be different because of the rules and the branding that they've set up around privacy. It's going to have to take a different approach,
which is fascinating.
Which is great. Like it's going to, in my opinion, Apple's coming out and blocking a lot of the ad business that was around, you know, prior to 2021 was so good for the rest of the world in terms of, yeah, I mean,
for them,
reasons, you know, and so they're gonna bend this whole market in another direction, and it's going to be in the privacy direction, and that's good news, I think.
I love it. I love it. I hope this whole idea of I control who has access to me and my model and my likes, I hope that becomes a reality.